You're going to order dinner without thinking twice. Maybe it arrives in a paper bag. Maybe it comes wrapped in plastic. You'll eat it in minutes and forget what it took to make it. But the real answer to what food actually is to your body is far stranger than anything on that menu. Your stomach doesn't know what a restaurant is. Your gut doesn't understand delivery apps. As far as your biology is concerned, almost none of this is normal. You are running ancient software on a modern plate. So what did people eat before any of this existed? Before farms, before bread, before anyone had ever seen a grain of wheat? The answer changes everything you think you know about your own hunger. Start 2 million years ago. Your ancestors were not sitting down to 3 meals a day. There was no such thing as a meal schedule. There was only one question, asked constantly: is there food nearby? And can I get to it before something else does? For most of human history, eating was opportunistic. You ate what you found when you found it. Roots, tubers, insects, whatever fruit hadn't already been stripped from the tree by birds and other primates. Meat, when it was available, was rare and precious, often scavenged from carcasses left behind by larger predators. This sounds bleak. It wasn't. It was varied. Researchers studying the diets of the Hadza people in Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, found something surprising. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe documented that the Hadza eat over 800 different plant and animal species across a single year. 800. Compare that to the average modern diet, which draws from a tiny handful of crops: wheat, corn, rice, soy. 4 plants provide the majority of calories consumed by humans today. Your ancestors were not specialists. They were generalists, flexible, opportunistic, willing to eat almost anything that wouldn't kill them, because starvation was always the bigger threat. Here's where it gets stranger. For a long time, scientists assumed early humans were mostly scavengers, picking at leftover meat and bone marrow, but the evidence tells a more complicated story. Isotope analysis of ancient teeth, the kind of research led by paleoanthropologists studying fossilized remains, reveals that early hominins ate a shifting diet depending on climate, location, and season. Some populations leaned heavily on plants. Others, especially in colder regions, relied almost entirely on animal fat and protein because there simply wasn't much else growing. This is the part that surprises people the most. There was no single ancient human diet. There were hundreds of them. A hunter-gatherer near the equator ate almost nothing, like a hunter-gatherer surviving an ice age in northern Europe. Your ancestors did not eat one way. They ate whatever their environment gave them, and their bodies adapted accordingly. Now think about fire. Around 1.5 million years ago, something changed that would reshape human biology forever: cooking. Richard Wrangham, a primatologist at Harvard, built an entire theory around this moment. He argued that cooking food didn't just make it taste better, it made it dramatically easier to digest. Cooked food yields more usable calories per bite than raw food. Your gut spends less energy breaking it down. That saved energy had to go somewhere. It went to your brain. Wrangham's research suggests that the shift to cooked food may have freed up the metabolic energy that allowed the human brain to grow to its current size. Think about that. The instant you sat down at a fire and ate something cooked instead of raw, you were quietly rewiring your own evolution. Cooking wasn't a convenience. It was a trade. Less time chewing, less energy digesting, more energy for thinking. Does that mean ancient humans were healthier than you? Not exactly. It's more complicated than that. Life expectancy was brutally short, and food scarcity was constant. There was no guarantee of a next meal. Feast or famine wasn't a phrase. It was daily reality. When there was a successful hunt, people ate enormous amounts of meat and fat in a short window because there was no refrigerator, no way to preserve it for long. When there wasn't, people went hungry, sometimes for days. Your body still remembers this rhythm, even if you don't. That overwhelming urge to keep eating past the point of fullness when food tastes really good, that's not a personal failing. That's an ancient survival instinct, tuned for a world where the next meal was never guaranteed. Then, around 12,000 years ago, everything changed again. Agriculture. Humans began domesticating wheat, barley, rice, and other grains. For the first time, food could be stored, planned, predicted. This should have been an unambiguous improvement. It wasn't. Studies of skeletal remains from early agricultural societies show something unexpected. Heights actually decreased after the shift to farming. Bone density dropped. Signs of malnutrition and disease increased. Bioarchaeologists have pointed to this pattern across multiple ancient farming populations in the Near East and Europe. Early farmers were, on average, shorter and less healthy than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. Why would gaining a stable food supply make people less healthy? Because stability came at a cost. Diets narrowed dramatically. Instead of hundreds of species, early farmers relied on a handful of crops. That meant less variety, fewer nutrients, and greater vulnerability if a single harvest failed. It also meant denser populations, and denser populations meant disease spread faster than ever before. The trade-off is almost poetic. Your ancestors gained security and lost diversity. They gained predictability and lost resilience. Farming didn't just change what people ate, it changed how vulnerable they were. And yet here you are, thousands of generations later, living entirely off the descendants of that trade-off. Nearly everything on your plate today traces back to that narrow list of domesticated crops: wheat, rice, corn, a handful of animals bred for meat and milk. Your body is still built for the 800 species the Hadza eat in a single year. Your plate offers you 4. This mismatch has a name. Researchers sometimes call it evolutionary discordance, the idea that human bodies evolved for one environment but now exist in a completely different one. Your cravings for fat, salt, and sugar aren't weaknesses. They're leftover instructions from a world where those things were rare and valuable, not available on every street corner. Think about the last time you couldn't stop eating something salty or sweet. That wasn't a lack of willpower. That was ancient programming meeting a modern environment it was never designed for. For nearly all of human history, encountering concentrated sugar meant finding ripe fruit at exactly the right moment. A rare and fleeting opportunity worth gorging on. Your brain still treats sugar like it's rare. It has no idea it's sitting in a vending machine down the hall. So what did ancient humans actually eat? Not a single diet. Not a clean answer you can put in a headline. They ate variety, shaped entirely by geography, season, and desperation. They ate opportunistically because the alternative was starving. They cooked, and in doing so, may have literally built the brain you're using to read this right now. And when they finally settled down to farm, they traded diversity for stability, and their bodies paid a measurable price. None of this is really about the past, though. It's about tonight. Every time you feel a pull towards something salty or sweet, or rich with fat, you're not being weak. You're hearing an instruction written millions of years ago in a body that never got the memo that scarcity ended. Every time you eat past fullness because the food is too good to stop, that's not gluttony. That's an ancient insurance policy against a famine that isn't coming. You carry the eating habits of a hunter-gatherer inside the body of someone standing in front of a refrigerator that is never empty. That gap between your instincts and your environment is not a flaw to fix. It's a story about survival, written in your own hunger, still playing out every single time you eat. Tonight, you'll order dinner without thinking twice, but now you know what your body actually thinks it's doing. It thinks it's preparing for winter. It thinks this might be the last meal for a while. It has no idea how wrong it is.